You're listening to Through Help and Back. Through Help and Back is a podcast focused on mental health, addiction, treatment, recovery, and all things related to personal improvement and wellness. Don't worry, we're not here to talk about problems without solutions, and we're definitely not here to talk about struggles without success. So come with your problems, leave with our solutions. Welcome to another episode of Through Help and Back. My name is Jason Pratt, CEO of Anew Behavioral Health, therapist for, I was thinking about this today, man. I've been a therapist, I think, almost as long as you've been alive. I was counting. I was getting ready for the show, and I was like, I had to take off my socks and use my toes because I've been doing this about like 22, 23 years. Was my first session. So we haven't talked about that background yet, so I'll just kind of roll into that. But many reasons to be excited today. I'm so glad that you guys are here with us. You're going to be glad that you're here with us. We've got a couple of cool things going on. Number one, we're in a new space. If you guys have noticed, the background has come alive. Ian doesn't have me stuck in the corner anymore. We've got colors, and we've got plants, and we've got feelings and emotions. We are still in New Hampshire, but we're in a new studio. This is our first recording, so we're making history here together. The other way we're making history together is, for the first time in this show, we are meeting with somebody who is, according to Yelp, the number one life coach in the LA area for 7, 8, I don't know, maybe 9 years. I think since like 2016. This person developed, founded, and is going to bring to us some awareness of practical enlightenment, which is an amazing term. I'm so excited to dig in and find out what that really means, because we've all talked about enlightenment. We've talked about spirituality. To bring that into a practical realm, that idea, that concept is amazing. So I'm here to learn along with you. And he is also a rebel mystic, and he wants to talk about his life, our life, the connection, the disconnection, the human condition, and what we can do to observe that in a different way and feel a little bit differently. So it's going to be an amazing session. I'm so glad you're here. Dan Mendilow, I'm honored that you are here, sir. Thank you so much for making time for us today.
Thank you very much for inviting me on here, Jason. I love talking about this stuff, especially with like-minded people.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're fresh off some travels too. I mean, are you even unpacked, or are you settled back in? Or?
No, I've been unpacking for days, and I still have like 3 more days left.
I have to sort of sheepishly admit, because I travel on a pretty regular basis, the suitcase never leaves my home office. The clothes may come and go, right? But like I have visions of like closing it and putting it in the closet. But I travel so often, it's like old stuff out, new stuff in. So I'm never fully unpacked. So don't worry about that, and don't beat yourself up. So tell us where you've been and what you've been up to. Where have your travels taken you?
Yeah, so I just moved back to the U.S. I lived in Mexico in this tiny little fishing village. Well, it's not so tiny anymore. It's Tuluming real quick. It's called Salulita. It's 40 minutes north of Puerto Vallarta, and it sits on top of a vortex. So if you've ever been to Sedona, there are many vortices all over the world, and they're all a little different, just like people are all a little different. The one under Sayulita is very feminine, and it speeds energy up. And when you speed human energy and emotion up, you heal faster, and the femininity of the energy is beautiful for healing, nourishing, nurturing, expanding, loving. But when you speed up human emotion, people get happier and hornier. So everybody there, if you're there for more than a day, it's like natural, the cleanest MDMA you've ever had in your life. It is the perfect place to do deep work.
It understands. It sort of sounds like a vacation you might need a vacation from.
A lot of people do. A lot of people there get lost in the sauce because it's got a lot of everything that you could want. It's got good surf and amazing food. I went there because my favorite shaman, Rebecca Wozniak, if you get a hold of this, I fucking love you, and I'm so grateful to you. She lives about half an hour outside of Sayulita and has been utterly instrumental in the last year and a half of rocket ship kind of, people love the word quantum, right? Because you get that jump, right? But this is like a quantum cannon of healing that I've done to myself over the last year and a half. And she has been a main fixture in that. So you can go the healing route in Sayu, or you can go party your dick off and just go bananas and just rage. And there are amazing DJs and parties all night and bars, and everything is cheap. So you can get kind of whatever you want. And a lot of people get really unbalanced because it's also accessible. But I came back feeling like a truly different human being, and really truly loving myself for the very first time. And it was a trip that I'm going to remember as sacred for the rest of my life.
Was that the goal? Did you go as a searcher and just sort of like, I know this is a magical place, let's see what happens? Or did you have an outcome you were looking for?
Okay, so my guides, when they speak with me, sometimes will tell me what I need to hear in order to do something. And then right when I've gone past the point of no return, they'll show me, actually, here's why you're doing it. Now, I really believed I was going to go down there to learn how to administer shamanic medicine because it's been so integral to my own healing and it's so beautiful. And I'm like, dope, definitely, because my guides told me to break my incredibly expensive lease in Santa Barbara in the middle of December, and I would have to keep paying for it until there was another renter. Now, who in their right minds moves in December when everybody's in the middle of their holiday parties and shopping and vacations and everything?
Probably the same number of people who in their right mind leave in December, right?
Yeah, exactly, right. Which I don't know if it's a good thing or not, but maybe, I don't know. I can't imagine there are that many people who are as crazy as I am.
No, it's a dead time for sure.
Yeah, right. But hey, man, my guides told me to jump, so I do. Like, I live in surrender and acceptance as much as I can. And I left without having it rented, and they found someone to move in on January 1st. Who the hell gets out of bed or off the couch on January 1st? So
a divorcee. I was going to say,
right. Yeah, I got to get out of here.
Somebody had a holiday fight, right? It's the most volatile time of the year. Yeah. But that's amazing. It's amazing, right? You say, I live in surrender, like the pieces do fit. It does connect. If it's just a base in trust, really. I mean, it's what it comes down to. So
it was scary because, like, I didn't want to have to keep paying that while I was paying for rent in Mexico, right?
Of course.
But
it worked out.
I do what I can to walk my talk. And this is my path. This is what I do. This is what I'm here for. I do not have the option of saying no. When spirit tells me to move, I move, and that's it, no matter how scary it is. And it's my work to heal the fears and deal with the insecurities or whatever gets triggered so that I can take that action.
Just as a point of education, when you talk about these vortex areas, can you tell me a little bit more about that concept? Because you said there's several around and they have different purposes. So what is it that brings that energy together? Like, what creates a vortex area?
So let's take a step back and define the word energy, because it's one of those amorphous kind of nebulous words that people use in all sorts of different ways. When I say energy, so people used to say, like, oh, I can feel the energy off this crystal, and think of like, oh, it's just woo-woo nonsense talk. You're just trying to be cool, which is weird. But what we know now is that everything that comes from the earth has an electromagnetic signature. Your heart produces an electromagnetic signature that is measurable up to 3 feet, or some people way longer, away from the body itself. So the earth produces electromagnetic signatures. We know of the Schumann resonance, for example, which is why when you put your feet on the earth and connect with a Schumann resonance, you heal, you calm down, your central nervous system regulates. We are part of the earth. We resonate with the frequencies produced by the earth. And in some places, the electromagnetic frequencies of the land itself has a different and stronger signature. And just like crystals, for example, one crystal can give off an electromagnetic signature that is calming, soothing, relaxing. Another one is energizing and playful and upper. Another one is for heart work. Another one is for grief. Right? There's just different chemistry producing different electromagnetic signatures that we pick up. most often unconsciously, but some of us some of us have better vision, better hearing. Some of us, we call them more sensitive or more empathic. And there are many kinds of empathy, by the way, can feel these things, but we all actually feel them, whether we know it consciously or not. And so it's like when people go to Sedona, the vortex in Sedona is profoundly peaceful and soothing.
Yeah, so it makes me think, right? So these are identified vortex areas. So you're saying kind of all areas resonate in their own way, you know? So I think about like societal issues. I think about things in cities. I think about dangerous areas, historically dangerous areas, and culture plays a role and history plays a role. But I wonder on some level if people aren't set up for that in some way, if they don't have incompatible energy, or if there's something that's stirring up their energy in a way where they need to be in a peaceful mindset and instead they're being driven up. Am I in the ballpark or?
You are in the ballpark, and it is also possible to kill a vortex. So in America, most of our vortices have been literally murdered out of the land. There is was a very powerful vortex under LA and under New York and under San Francisco. Why do you think these became our hotspots?
Makes sense.
There are many reasons, right? And you can see how each one has a different flavor. LA is very creative, right? But the problem is that with the abundance of violence that has been committed on that ground ever since what are now Americans showed up here, we just flat out plowed it away.
So we can change. Energy is multi-directional. We can actually influence it the other direction, especially in mass.
Yes, absolutely. And that's why when you go to different places, like straight up, I don't like living in America for many reasons. But one of them is when I move back here, when I come back here, it feels like I'm wearing weights around my ankles. Because when I go to some places in Mexico, like the Pueblo Mágicos, the magic towns that are recognized by the government as magic towns, I can feel all of that beautiful live energy. And to me, it feels like medicine.
Yeah.
And it's just, I'm happier, I'm healthier, I'm more energetic, I'm more vibrant than when I'm in the US. And there are many reasons for it, but some of it really is because when you go to other places, their vortices are alive and well.
And so we've all had that experience. I mean, we've all had that sense of, I feel comfortable here, or it just feels different here. And we even use that term energy. I'm glad you took us back and kind of redefined energy, because we've all heard that said, like there's just an energy to this place, and to kind of put a definition to that. But what you're saying is you're feeling something real, something tangible, that if there was a deeper level of understanding, you could almost measure. It is because it's different. That's why you're feeling it.
Yes. Think of vortices like chakras.
Mm-hmm.
And just like your chakras can get blocked, we can block vortices. And just like you can open up and heal and expand your chakras, and when you do, you tend to become happier and life becomes easier and you become more chilled out and your central nervous system regulates and you have more fun and your inner child wakes up. The same thing can be done with vortices on the earth. We just need to be mindful and intentional, and we need to change how we live. We live in a fundamentally toxic society that preaches just the worst possible messages I could come up with. And that's why I'm a rebel mystic.
That's the rebel mystic, because you're rebelling against what you were fed and what you were taught early on. Because that was my next question, Dan. I wasn't taught any of this shit in school. I'm vibing with you and I hear it. And of course, in the world I'm in, like we have different terms for the same thing. So when you're talking about unblocked energy and chakras, like in psychology, that's a flow state, right? So, but we just get there by different definitions. When you've entered that flow state, I bet you were talking about the same thing in terms of that energy channeling and flowing freely through your body. A little bit different? You feel like there's a big difference?
Similarly, flow state, from what I've studied, is quite different. And so, for what I've experienced and what I've studied in flow state is a condition in which your unconscious takes over. And so there is no gap of the conscious filtering or transmutation or skepticism between your unconscious and whatever you're doing. So that's why it feels like, and by the way, spirit speaks to you through your unconscious. So I do believe when people say that book came through me, I didn't write it, I believe them. And when they say the music was dancing them instead of them dancing to the music, I know that experience. I just came from a 5-day festival and I was in it, baby. When you just go and there's no thought, you're just in it and you find like, oh my God, I didn't even know my hips could move like that. I didn't know I could jive like this. That's that flow state.
I love it.
When you're really with people you love and you're in deep conversation or laughter and there's no thought, you just you just do what feels right. And it's like your consciousness has taken a back seat to your power center of your heart. And you just express.
Right.
That is flow. Now you can assist yourself in getting into it by cleaning up your energy and by healing and by working with your chakras and all of that for certain. It's very difficult to get into a flow state when you're in pain, emotional or physical or spiritual, or if your chakras are blocked, because that puts a lot more pressure on your consciousness and on your ego, and those block flow. So they're intimately related. They're just not the same.
They're neighbors. They're not in the same house, but they're across the street. Yeah, I get it. I get it. It makes sense. So, where I was kind of going with that was your education. So, kind of taking us back to like, young Dan. Were you given all the same American messages that that you're rebelling against now? Like, I guess if you're rebelling, what are you rebelling against? Where did that teaching start? And when did this new understanding start to develop for you? Like, how do we get here?
So first of all, I was born suicidally depressed, which is really messed up. And I was born in Jerusalem, Israel, and I lived in South Africa for a year and lived all over America, bounced around, major traumas, but I never fit in. And according to my human design, I'm never going to. I can't. It's not my function. It's not my job. But I didn't know that. And I got bullied and picked on and messed with. And I've been looking for, a lot of my time. I just didn't want to be in pain. And it was really weird because I felt like I was doing everything I was supposed to. And I was doing everything the society taught me to do. And it was making things worse. And then when I started my healing journey and then integrated my spiritual self, had my Kundalini awakening and really got into it. And the further I healed, especially in this last year and a half with shamanic medicines, it really came to me that there is a reason why now, when on paper we live in the safest, most abundant time ever. We have the most money. We have the most time, the most space. We are living in golden times. So why is it that our life expectancy is going down? Why is it that depression, stress, and anxiety are going through the roof? Why is it that more people are feeling more disconnected, more unhappy now than in recorded history? Why is it that so many people are hooked on drugs to help them cope with their pain, physically or emotionally? It's because there is something very deeply, fundamentally wrong in the way that we've been taught how to be humans and how to relate with ourselves and each other. And so I went back to my research and I integrated and connected everything. And it really came out of a Bufo journey. I did a Bufo ceremony that was so intense. It took me a month and a half to integrate it. I actually had a hard time talking because it was like my thoughts were going through a cloud of deep integration thoughts that then when they came down, it was like another ceremony. And the more I live through this and the more I live it and the more I define it and work through this framework that I call practical enlightenment, which is the way to harmonize your ego and soul, the way to live a truly spiritual lifestyle that inherently promotes growth and connection and love and happiness and real fulfillment in a lasting and beautiful way. the more it felt like I was taking myself into a dimension of experience that I've longed for ever since I was born.
And this is, I mean, you're talking very recent. I mean, you've carried this around for, I mean, I don't know how old you are, it doesn't matter, but for most of your life, right?
Yeah. Well, the thing is that now I can look at it and I can see how all of my little interests and hobbies and the different phases of my career and healing myself all were necessary to build and connect into this framework that I can now use for myself and others. I needed to learn all of that because it combines deep emotional healing and cognitive rewiring and relearning. And it takes quite a bit. That's why we need to make it practical. This whole idea of enlightenment, because it is not easy to slough off a lifetime of societal, cultural, and familial conditioning that are destroying your chances of having the life that you want. Because we live in society, especially Americans, we live in a society that everywhere you go, you are bombarded by toxic information and brutal conditioning that is almost like if I was in a lab, like if I played SimCity, but my job was to fuck everybody up as much as possible, I would do exactly what is going on in America right now. Exactly. It's like textbook. No wonder there's so many conspiracy theories, because we look at this and we go, how couldn't this be planned? It is perfect and complete destruction of an emotional system.
When you look at the system through your eyes now, what are the 2 to 3, like when you say SimCity, but I'm trying to fuck everybody up, what are the 2 to 3? I love it. I feel like it belongs on a t-shirt or something. Like, I love it already. It's like, so it belongs in an actual game. I would buy SimCity, but fuck everybody up.
You can have like a cheat code and you just get to play the devil for a little while.
And like, I just don't know if you win the game by like escaping that and not being fucked up, or if you win the game by being the most fucked up. We have to decide that. But otherwise, it's a great game. But no, so if you look at those 2 to 3 moves, you say like, we're doing everything wrong and we're set up to fail. We're set up to be spiritually disconnected. What are the mistakes? Like, what do you see as like the big mistakes? Is it within the family? Is it media? Is it, the division between one another? Like, what are the moves that are being made that we're falling into?
Yeah, I think the main issue, and this we see as fairly ubiquitous in Western society, is the vaulting and worship of the ego. Now, like we were talking about before this, I think it is very important to know that the ego is necessary. The ego is not the enemy. It is not. The ego is beautiful. The ego is necessary. The ego is there to serve and assist. But just like anything, the right tool for the right purpose with the right time. You can't use a hammer for everything. Try to make a salad with a hammer. Tell me how it goes. Right? But we've done that with ego. It's just everything. And when you get more in, so you have 2 sides of you, right? Because I think a lot of your listeners probably have heard that phrase, we are spiritual beings having a human experience. So I'm going to talk a lot about everything that I'm saying here are my beliefs. Okay. I'm going to say them with conviction because I believe them. But if you're listening to this and you disagree, please, that's okay. Reach out to me. Let's talk. I'm not going to try to convince you. I'm going to try to learn from you. And it's okay to disagree with this. And sometimes I'm saying this because the way that I talk, sometimes people are like, well, that's not fact. You say it as if it's fact. It's fact for me.
Yeah, but aren't those the worst, like most difficult people to have conversations with, when you're sharing your experience and they go, sources, what are your sources? As if no study out of any university has ever been wrong, right? As if we didn't just go through a lot of source material that turned out to be completely wrong, right?
Yes.
As a whole world, right? So I feel you on that, and I like your disclaimer, but at the same time, man, I'm also encouraging you to like go because you're sharing your truth. And I just don't think we're going to find that in an academic journal. But I also think the things that we're finding in the academic journals have not really helped us, and they've got us here, right? So let's go for it.
Yeah. So with that, we have two sides. We have a soul self, a true self. If you think about a video game, that is the player. Then we have the ego, the differentiated self. That is the character. Now, just from this, it doesn't make much sense if the character tries to dominate the player. But this is what we're trying to do. Now, your soul self, souls grow, but they grow in wisdom and experience. And by the way, a lot of what I'm saying here comes from hundreds of hypnotherapy recordings in which people have found that over ages, cultures, religions, backgrounds, nationalities, hundreds of people have said almost identical things here. So we do have sources, and there are brilliant books to read. And Journey of Souls is the excellent one to start with. There are, I think, 2 sequels to them. Not as good in my opinion, but the first one is beautiful.
A sequel is never as good as the original.
Yeah, exactly, that, right? Well, actually, Top Gun sequel was amazing. So
okay, all right. I stand corrected. I'll give you that.
Most of the time, it's not as good as the original one. Yeah, of course. There are the outliers. Sure.
Yeah.
So we have these true selves, our soul selves, and they want to grow. They want to grow in wisdom. But the only way to do that is to grow through experience. And so they choose human lives. Now, why is it human lives? Why do we need ego as separation? Because if we go all the way back to the creation of anything, and we believe that everything we see around us is part of one great cosmic organism in the constant state of self-identification, then we need separation. It's just like you can't see what colors your eyes are. You can't see how gorgeous your eyes are unless you have a mirror. You need something else to be able to reflect to you. But if everything is part of God or the universe, then as we separate and as each of us experiences life, we are the universe experiencing itself. So we need ego. Ego is separation. The problem is with it comes a cost, because there is this thing called the original wound. The separation from God, the separation from allness. That's why everybody says when you feel oneness, right? That's bliss, nirvana, the best you can possibly feel. That means that separation is the worst you can possibly feel. So the more we get into ego and the things that separate us, materialism, status, power, greed, these things, notice that the more we get into these, the more in pain we are. The more narcissistic we are, the more selfish, the more greedy we are, the more in pain we become, because it exacerbates the original wound. The problem is, if we don't know this, we feel the pain, and then we do 2 things. We think, well, money didn't make me feel better. I guess I need more. And then we see, well, my separation, or I'm not getting love, I'm not getting the connection, I'm too separated, so I need to cope. Let me do the coping things. This is how we develop addictions. This is how we develop drinking problems and all sorts of emotional and physical habits that do not solve the problem. They make it worse. Look at our society. Drinking is everywhere. It's in every single TV show. It's on billboards all over the place. Our doctors prescribe drugs that get us addicted. Our fucking doctors do that to us. Our psychiatrists give us drugs that numb us and disconnect ourselves from our hearts and from our families. And what do they say? More success, more status. Everybody wants more money. Everybody, when you look at our coaching industry, most of it is, look how much money I've made. Look at how big my launch was. Look at my status. Look at my accolades. Look at how successful I am. Do you want to be this successful? Let me teach you. Give me your money. Give me your soul, and I'll give you this bullshit. That's where we are. This is why it hurts. Because it's we know this. Everybody knows that money doesn't make you happy, but why do we keep chasing it? because we think, well, more money will give me more things. And if I have nicer stuff, then I'll be more comfortable. I can go on more vacations. But it's all coping. All of that is coping. Why do you need that stuff if you learn how to be happy and fulfilled? And the weird thing is that if you study neuroscience, every study that I've read, which connects happiness and success, shows us that the happier you are, the more fulfilled, the more love you give and receive, the more creative you are, the faster you think, the better your memory, the easier your connections become, the more cooperation you receive from others, the more opportunities people send your way, the more you are or the faster you can solve problems. So we have it upside down. It's let me get all this success and all this ego shit so that I can be happy. But really, if you wanted to be that successful, you'd find your happiness, your love and fulfillment first.
Before we go on, I want to say a few words about Anew Behavioral Health. Anew Behavioral Health is an outpatient provider of mental health and substance abuse services in Ohio and New Hampshire. That means that Anew can successfully treat mental health and substance abuse issues or dual diagnosis if you're struggling with both. Their integrated approach allows for them to successfully address issues related to anxiety, depression, addiction, trauma, and really anything that stands between your life and the life you could be living. You really cannot bring them an issue that they have not successfully treated. They have also solved one of the biggest problems for people seeking help. They have a dedicated team waiting to hear from you at helpnow@anewbh.com. If you contact them today, within 24 hours, you will have heard back from, wait for this, a real live person, and will also have your first appointment scheduled at that time. So how do you contact them? Well, if you're in Ohio or New Hampshire, you're probably close to one of their local locations. You're welcome to go in. If not, you can always reach them online at anewbh.com. And if you're interested in services for you or loved one, use that address, helpnow@anewbh.com. You know, I worked my first big boy job. I worked in addictions. I was a therapist, and I was fresh off my college party days, and I was going to help people get off drugs, which is a hilarious combination to begin with. But it's what you do in your 20s, you know. And I did it for a long time. And the number one thing in terms of people always ask, like, well, what are people addicted to? You know, is it heroin? Is marijuana a real drug? Are they just addicted to marijuana? Like, you know, is it drinking? Like, what kills the most people? Like, what is the number one drug of choice? And to kind of connect with what you're saying, the number one drug of choice by far is more.
Yes.
That's it. It's just more. That's what everybody wants, right? Whether it be sex, drugs, rock and roll, companionship, whatever, it's more. And I think that there's also something to that. We've all heard the phrase, like, the first hit is free.
Yeah.
Right. And it was something they scared us with in elementary school. Like, hey, guys are going to come up and they're going to give you free drugs like all the time, but then they got you hooked and then they're going to make you pay for it. But I do think there is some power in the first of any new experience, your first kiss, your first home run, your first friend, your first sleepover, all the good stuff, right? It still sticks with you. Well, all the bad stuff does too, right? All those firsts. And so I think that's what sets us up for that addiction to more, is because we think it's going to ever approach the intensity or the vibrance of that first whatever, insert the experience, right? And so we get ourselves put on a hamster wheel where we are forever chasing the first. And the only way we know to get there is to run faster, to do more, to take more. And we never get there. You know that. I mean, everybody knows we never get there.
Of course not. And by the way, where are all those people who were supposed to give me free drugs?
Right.
What happened to those people? I was promised free drugs, and what the fuck? I feel like I got gypped.
They're in the vans with the candy. I mean, that's all I know.
Sadly, I'm a little too big for that populace. But so that's the thing. We can familiarize anything external. Human beings, it's called the law of familiarity. It's a cognitive and emotional bias in which the more times you experience something, the more you normalize it. This is why lottery winners are not the happiest, and paraplegics are not the most upset. We normalize everything. The problem with that is, like, just like you're right, you get 10K months, and the first couple are sweet, but then that becomes your baseline. And then if you make 9,000, you failed.
It's over. Yeah.
You failed. So what happens? You need more. You need more to get that. But the thing is, you never, ever familiarize feelings. You can be angry your entire life, but never normalize it.
Yeah.
But you could be happy your entire life and never get enough. It's always good. It's always sweet. Every time you feel that fulfillment, that joy, it's like it's the first time. So that's where we want to be. And that's where your soul self comes in play, because your soul self is tapped into the infinite source of solutions and creativity and creative power, literally making things, and joy and love and laughter and bliss. So practical enlightenment, and what I believe as the medicine that we all crave, is not abolishment of the ego. I do not think the ego is the enemy. We're here to experience life, and what a beautiful thing, because life is gorgeous and so many things are beautiful. That's the other thing, by the way, is that we've been taught, by the way, ego judges. It creates good, bad, us, them, white and black. But the thing is that we've been taught nonsense. We've been taught that feeling bad is bad, feeling good is good, and so you should always feel good and never feel bad. This is the good vibes only crowd, the toxic positivity crowd. Just think positive thoughts. You never need to look at your pain. You can just heal without ever looking at your traumas, and you never have to look in your closet or under your rugs for the boogeyman. Bullshit. Fucking nonsense. People are like, I can live in 5D all the time. Fuck you. You're just escaping. You're not supposed to live in 5D all the time. Why? Because feeling bad is not bad. Pain is a teacher. The question is, are you showing up?
Well, it's so funny how life works. I was in a conversation today with actually one of the folks from Anew Behavioral and one of our regional directors, and we were talking about how people have forgotten the bell curve, right?
Yeah.
So the whole bell curve, like all the 80% here in the middle, right, and then the outliers. So happy lives out here, sad lives over here, and in the middle is a whole range of okay. Like I'm okay, right? You know, a little bit less okay, a little bit more okay, but you know, yeah. But over here is really happy, and over here is really sad, and those things happen like 10% of the time. Right. But somewhere along the line, it's that management of expectations. We've come to believe happy should be the baseline, as if happy sits in the middle and we should walk around blissful and happy 90% of the time. Right. And then we sit there and go, well, I'm only happy half the time. So life sucks half the time.
I must be
fix
broken.
that. Yes. What's wrong with me? Why am I not always happy? Because on my Instagram feed, everybody's happy constantly. Right. So I'm not on here smiling. What the hell's wrong with me? You know?
Right.
So I that's part of it too, is that media piece I was talking about earlier, how we've been taught this set of expectations, you know, like every day, you're only going to get one greatest day of your life.
Yeah.
By definition. Right. But it's like, wake up, you're going to have the greatest day of your life. And then if you don't, you feel like a failure. Right. I failed again. And that wound, I think you're speaking about, deepens because the separation between your lived experience and who you really are is exacerbated. Right now, you've got more ground to cover, more separation.
So here's like one thing from, you know, a practical piece that a listener can use, right? If you're listening to this, I want you to try this, because everybody's had the experience of listening to a song that makes them sad, but it feels really good. Like, I love that. I love watching movies that make me cry. I do. And like, it feels so good, you know?
You watch them again and again. You go seek them out.
Yeah. Yeah, like I have my songs that are like, it's time, grab the Kleenex, let's go. You know, and I look forward to it. It feels good. Why? Why does that feel good, even though it feels bad? Because if feeling bad is bad, that can't happen. But what happens is, because it's music and because it's not a person, it's just music. It just is. It's something that kind of like objective, right? And it triggers a part of you that feels sad. But because you don't have to think of, oh, someone's making me sad or something is making me sad, then what happens? You just look at the sadness. You sit with the sadness. You observe it. You accept it. and you're with it. You be with it like a good friend. And that's why it feels so good, because just like you want to be seen and you want to be heard and you want to be felt without being judged, you have parts within you that crave that too. And when you can be there and you can accept all of you and you pour love on all of you without trying to change it, it feels amazing because you're finally seeing yourself. And so you can do that with your emotions. Like whenever I feel like, I consider myself very happy. Does that mean I feel good all the time? No. I feel the full range, but I consider myself happy because when I get sad, I feel into it and I listen to what it's telling me. And like this, when I moved to Mexico, was the first time I ever missed anybody, because before then I didn't really let people get close enough to me, but I did now. And I'm like, what is this? This does not feel good. Like huge pangs. It's like a dagger in my heart of, oh my God, I'm so far away from the people I love.
Yeah.
And so I felt it. And I just sat with it. I watched it, listened to it, and accepted it. And I dropped right through it. And it took me to how much I love them.
Yeah.
And that's what I felt. And I just got plunged into an ocean of how grateful I am to have these people in my life. So they're not here, but they're in my life. They're in my world. And what a blessing it is to miss them. And when you're angry, you can listen to it. Anger is trying to tell you something. It's trying to serve you. Same thing with all of our negative emotions, that fear, even shame. Even shame, the most destructive of the human emotions, has a positive outcome as long as you look at it as a friend showing up to serve you.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask, because how much work it must take to get to a place where you can feel something uncomfortable and not immediately want to distance yourself from that discomfort, right? I use the phrase lean in, like lean into your anger, lean into your sadness, right? And when I say that, I don't mean like with a big forearm leaning in like that. I mean putting your head on its shoulder, like lean in, lean into the embrace. And just and just sit with it for a while. But that takes so much work,
Sure.
And I just wonder, like, what was the light bulb for you? What was it that said, okay, I need to lean in? Or how did you get comfortable leaning in? Is it your travels? Is it the journey? Or is it the mindset that allows you to be more comfortable leaning in?
Well, I've been doing mindset work, healing work, and spiritual work for 21 years. So
it's a good start.
It's a great start. But one of the things, here are a few different pieces. One is, early on, I trained myself to run towards the things that scare me.
Yes.
Because that is where growth is.
And you had practice as a child. You had things that scared you. I mean, you kind of hinted at some trauma, some early experiences. So sometimes you get tired of being in the corner, right? Like,
yeah,
I'm going to face this.
I know pain. I've lived in pain for 31 years. I lived in pain and thought about killing myself multiple times a day, every single day. I know pain. But instead of running away from it, I run through it. Like buffalo in a storm. They run through the storm because they know that's the quickest way through the thing. Right? And I learned very often that pain, or very early, that pain is a teacher. When you hurt, when you feel someone, things are going wrong, class is in session, the universe is trying to teach you something so you can grow and evolve. It is your job to be the best student you can be. And I refuse to be a bad student because I'm here to live and grow. We all are. That's why our souls chose this life. Your soul chose your life with your challenges so that you can overcome them. And in the overcoming, grow and expand and live your purpose. Your purpose is not your job. Your purpose is your self-actualization. It's your soul actualization. It's living in alignment with your soul's plans. And as you do, things feel better and more magical and more synchronicities and more love, and everything shows up. So I learned When something scares me, I run to it. So that's one big thing. Another thing here is, I do have a leg up on a lot of people. This is my obsession. I was built and born to be a healer. I am living my purpose, my function. It is sacred and holy to me. So I do not have the liberty of doing anything else. And when my soul tells me to go do this, even though it scares me, and so many things scare the shit out of me, and I do them anyway. It's not my choice. I'm the video game character. I can't decide where I go. I'm told to go, I go. Period. And if it scares me, okay, so there's work for me to do. So I heal the wounds and the perceptions and insecurities. And I'll just tell you, like right now, I'm falling in love for the first time and just discovered that I'm polyamorous. It's an orientation, not a decision or a lifestyle. And I learned through my connection with this woman why I felt trapped in all my previous relationships. Now, polyamory is like relationships on expert mode. to see the woman that I'm falling in love with making out with another guy is all my social conditioning screaming at me.
Bad. It's bad. Get it. Break. Be angry. Get jealous.
Be upset by this.
Compare yourself quickly.
Right.
You know?
All of these things. Right. Be insecure. and fortunately, I'm a rebel. So I felt that, and I'm like, no, I'm going to see what I really feel. And I felt compersion because I met the guy before, and I really like him. We boyed out immediately. Like, we were brothers. Boom. Instantly. And I saw how happy she was. And I'm like, fuck that conditioning. I get to decide how I feel. And I feel good about this. Conditioning be damned. So I think the rebel part of me also helps.
I think the rebel part of you has saved your life multiple times.
I think you're right.
Yeah, because I think that when I imagine you at your lowest point, I imagine that voice that goes, "No, to hell with this."
Yeah, that's exactly what it was.
I'm not going to play by this. I'm going to make up my own rules right now. Yeah.
That's how I got on my healing journey at the first place. I planned my suicide, and if I felt the same way in the morning, I would do it. And I woke up and I was pissed. And exactly that, exactly what you said. You nailed it. It was like, no. Why am I listening to you? You got me here.
Yes.
I didn't do this to myself. I was listening to you. That's where I went wrong. Well, fuck you. I'm going to find out truth. And I'm going to find out how to heal. And I'm going to find out how to really be happy. And I'm going to find out how to be really fulfilled. And all of your rules be damned, because I can see what it's doing to you and I want no more of it.
Do you think that when you say, damn you, and I don't decide, it's decided for me, do you find that to be a benevolent guide, or do you find that to be a challenging guide? And what I'm getting at is this somebody that's pushing you out of the nest over and over so you can learn how to fly? Or is this somebody who's pushing you to see how long it'll take you to stop getting back up? You know what I mean? How do you conceptualize that?
For a while, I had to heal my relationship with God because I felt like I had an alcoholic father trying to teach me by beating me. I almost died every single year for like 4 years straight. It was awful and torturous, and I really didn't like it. And I healed that relationship and really saw that it was because I was resisting the lessons, and life is going to teach you. And at first it'll be small, and then it'll get louder and louder and louder, AKA more painful and more painful and more painful, until you get the hint. And that was when I really started living even more in surrender and acceptance. And then, my wounds are helpful. They're really helpful. I learn a lot from them. And so I do not think anymore that my guides or my universe that I live in is mean or cruel. I think that it was a learning process in which I really needed to get broken and ground down to dust so I could give up being so stubborn and give up trying to control and get to be a video game character and love it. And really understand that when I listen and when I follow and when I accept and surrender, then the life that was planned out for my happiness and fulfillment and evolution gets to happen. It's planned out for me. The blueprint is designed so that I can thrive. Why would I resist that? Because, well, I resisted that because of societal conditioning told me that this is wrong, that this is bad, that I should have more money and all this other crap. And then one of the ways, for example, so even after I healed my suicidal depression, I still got depressed for 2 to 3 weeks every year. And this is a real big issue for me because I thought as a healer and a coach, how could I help other people if I couldn't erase this? And
Right.
society says, you're depressed, take this pill. You're depressed, do this thing. This is bad. This is wrong. This is broken. You don't need to live in this. You never need to feel this. Take this stuff. And especially in the coaching industry, which is incredibly toxically positive, I felt shame. I felt real deep shame every single time I got that depression. Then I sat with ayahuasca. And before I get to this, actually, there's one thing that all my healers would tell me is, Dan, you need to feel more joy. Dan, you need to feel more joy. And I tell them, like, I don't know how. I've never felt joy, literally never. I don't know how to access it. And I didn't know why. And I sat with ayahuasca. And ayahuasca showed me every depression I ever had and what it was trying to do for me, how it was trying to serve me, how it was removing things that shouldn't have been there, people, habits, thoughts, identities that shouldn't have been there. They were only awful because I fought it. And it showed me how to listen. And it showed me that this is a friend. It doesn't feel good. So what? It's serving me. And right then, I stopped fighting myself and I started listening. And the weirdest thing is, I started from then feeling joy for the first time in my life. And I realized because I didn't accept my darkness, I couldn't experience all of my light.
You were never going to run through the storm. You were always going to try to outrun it. You were going to try to run around it. You're never going to run through it. Yeah.
Yeah, I was trying really hard. I was trying to, like, this is a bad part of me. I need to heal it. It's part of my shadow. And you can't heal, beat, destroy, ignore your shadow. The only thing you can do is learn and appreciate and value it and learn to love it. And now when a little bit of depression comes by, it's like an old friend coming with new messages and gifts, and I devote time to it, and I give myself space, and I listen. What are you trying to teach me? What are you trying to show me? And no matter what it is, how painful or difficult it is, I go with it, and it takes me to bliss every time.
I work with kids a lot, and I try to describe to them that feelings are part of your family, right? They come to visit, right? And doesn't mean like, so you may have that one relative you don't want to come visit and you're really annoyed and uncomfortable when they show up, right? But they're the uncle that takes you out and teaches you a sport or toughens you up and beats you up a little bit, right? And then they leave. Because I think one thing we fall in this trap of that feelings are forever, right? They're like, oh my gosh, I'm going to feel like this forever. It's like, no, they're just visiting. It's just a visit, and the ayahuasca and those similar type of substances, I have great hope for that because that's one of the first bridges that I've seen between traditional psychology and psychotherapy and the spiritual realm in which you found healing. Is that connect to your concept of practical spirituality? I mean, is that necessary, you think, for that? Or do you think that just was part of your journey and there's other ways to access that? Because when I think about the practical aspects of spirituality, that your word was perfect. How do I access it? And that seems to be a really easy way to access that. So is that a future you see for your practical spirituality as well?
I think what'll happen with when I start releasing programs is for those who really want to continue is we'll probably do a retreat and part of it will be pre-work and then we'll all do ayahuasca together and then we'll do post-work. I don't think it's necessary, but I do think it's
transformative.
Yeah, it's a beautiful gift. But here's the thing. If you're listening to this and you're wondering, I think any shamanic medicine, sit with it when it calls you. Do not go searching for it. But when it's your time, it will make itself known. You'll hear it around you. It'll spark in your dreams. It'll come up in conversation. You'll see it everywhere. then, and it might not be ayahuasca, it might be peyote or bufo or combo or gobo, or it could be any of these. And that's fine, but you don't also need it. So the practical part is to create harmony between your soul and your ego. Now, your soul does not have things like fears or insecurities. So what do? We heal our fears and our insecurities. The soul sees everybody as equal. So we rewire the perceptions that tell us that there is a hierarchy of life, that it's like it's even possible to be unworthy. This is one of the wild things here, that it's even possible. No, 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 no. You were born because you're worthy. Your worthiness is a fact like gravity. I don't care whether you believe it, and I don't give a fuck about your belief systems here. I don't care whether you believe in gravity. It exists. Period.
Yeah, you're not floating. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I don't care what you say. Like it exists. Done. And I don't care how much you try. You can't change it. Right? Just like your worthiness. Your worthiness exists. It is a fact. Period. So we do the work in order for you to realize that and see the worthiness in each other and realize that you cannot increase or decrease yours or anyone else's worthiness. And as we move through and as we integrate a lot of these other soul dimensions and we relieve ourselves of the stranglehold of the ego, then we get to enjoy the ego because it's fun to make money and it's fun to have influence and it's fun to be powerful. So we create the harmony between them and we get to enjoy the gifts of the ego and we get led by through surrender and acceptance and we enjoy, because the more you embody your soul self, the more you are like your soul, the more you can tap in through your intuition to guidance, to that infinite stream of solutions and creativity and wonder and bliss. And you get to feel all that. And life becomes even easier. And you don't have to have a 5-year plan because your soul will tell you what to do when you need to know. And you don't need to have everything figured out because your heart will guide you and you don't need to know. And you don't need to worry about how much money you're going to make because once you focus on being happy and fulfilled, your funds will be there and you'll have enough and usually more than enough. But the thing is, whatever you use with it will truly fill you up. So you don't need the more. You'll get more. You will get more because it's impossible to not get more if you're doing this because you're becoming magnetic. Once you harmonize the soul and the ego, you magnetize what you need, what will actually move the needle for you. So it might not be money, it might be love. It might not be love, it might be physical health. It might not be physical health, it might be wonder and adventure. But the thing is, you'll magnetize the things to you that make the biggest difference in your life. So the other stuff doesn't even matter. You don't even care.
Right. Because now you're into a situation where like attracts like, right? And you're more like your soul self, as you said. Your soul self knows what will be fulfilling for you, right? Because there's fast food and you can eat it all day and be starving. And then there's real food, you know, and you can be fed. And so you can be fulfilled, but then you become, you said a magnet, but it's like attracts like. Those things will flow to you more freely. What, you'd made mention of we chose this for our own development, right? Like, so prior to consciousness, we're choosing. We're here doing the work. Some people have different work, more work, less work. I've heard stories tougher than yours. I've heard stories easier than yours. You know, it's just, we're all on the spectrum. In your opinion, what happens if we don't get the work done? Like, why is it important to get this work done?
Listen, boo-boo, if you're listening to this and you think you can get through without doing the work, you're just going to have to do it again in the next life. It's called karma. And karma is not you get what you give. That's a pop thing. Karma is cause and effect. And when your soul grows and wants to evolve in wisdom, and you have a life in which you are nasty to people, you set off cause and effect, ripples of effect. And in order for you to grow in wisdom, you may have to experience the other side and receive it, because then you close the loop, right? Then you end that wave. But if you don't learn it, you can experience it as much as you want, just like a person who goes into 10 abusive relationships over and over and over again. It's not because if it's just you get what you give, that pattern would stop. The thing is that if you don't learn, you will keep on receiving opportunities to learn, because the cause and effect, that ripple that you've created, has not been closed yet. That's why you have this life. Your soul decided with its own counsel, your spirit team, depending on what happened in the last life, what you're going to do in this life. And so in many of my past lives, and I remember them, I'm working on healing my relationship with humanity now, because I've had so many lives in which I was a healer and I was burned at the stake. I was stoned. By the way, these memories are so gnarly that like I'll watch a movie or a show with a witch burned at the stake and I get unreasonably ragey. My whole body just, but actually now that I've done a lot of healing on it, I don't know. I didn't want to test that again, but it used to be seeing red. It used to be just like, I can't bear this. So what happened? I chose a life in which I experienced so much pain and agony that I forced myself to be a healer. But I learned how to sniff out and work with pain so I can be an amazing healer. And I gave myself challenges that would really push me to learn, or I would kill myself, to grow, or I would vanish. And I went through it and I came out finally putting an end to my past karmas, to not only be a healer, but to thrive as a healer and to claim my power back, to serve like I've always wanted to serve, but be appreciated for it rather than persecuted and tortured and murdered. I'm putting an end to so many lifetimes of that karma going on. That's how I'm ending that cycle.
Because who better to teach other people how to fight a spiritual fight than somebody who's been through many wars, right? I mean, there's just things you learn on the battlefield you can't learn from the books, you know? So I tend to be, hopefully not toxically positive, but I tend to be solution focused. I think it all works out in the end. I think there's some really terrible times, but I do think we all get there. So the flip side to that question is, I just asked you, what happens if you don't get the work done? What happens when you do? What happens when you do cross over and heal these wounds and reconnect? What's next if you're successful in this?
I mean, only the sexiest, most amazing life you'll ever imagine. Things will happen to you that will literally blow your mind. You don't even, this might be hard to hear. Right now, as you're listening to this, you can't even imagine how magical your life will be the more work you do. And I know that because it keeps on happening to me. I keep on having those moments of like, I cannot believe I get to experience this.
Yeah.
I didn't even know I could feel this much joy or this much love or this much wonder or this much playfulness or this much bliss. I had no idea that this was a thing for anybody, let alone for me.
Right.
And that's one of the things that got me hooked on the work, where it's like, dude, like you can be a wizard too, Harry. And you just gotta do the work you came here to do, and you will see a different side of life. And it gets, and I don't know if it gets easier. Some things get easier, but then you move, like a video game, you move on to a harder level and things get harder. But it's not about easy or hard, it's about meaning.
Yeah, it's worth it. It becomes worth it. It's more fulfilling.
Yes,
yeah.
Yes. Because when you're healing your fears, you get to live a more adventurous life. When you do the work, like I one of my bufo journeys showed me that I was afraid of loving myself. that I was afraid that if I truly just ripped the governor off and loved myself, that I would do something to betray myself or disappoint myself. And when I healed that, all of my relationships improved. And now it's wild to see how I impact people. And even in the festival, just small interactions where I could really serve and I could gift and I could show people how beautiful they are because I see how beautiful I am. And that created these gorgeous, magical moments that I could see, like, this is service. This is why I do the work, so that I can have these magical moments that have really nothing to do with me except for the fact that I love contributing to people and it lights me up to do that. And the more I heal, the better I can do that. And the faster I can do that. And the more people I can connect with, and the deeper I laugh. And the more things make me laugh. And the more I cry happy tears and sad tears, but I love those too. The more you do the work, the more you can appreciate and experience all of life, get to experience and appreciate all of life, the full spectrum of feeling and experience. And that's what we came here to feel, not just happiness, everything, and see how everything is beautiful, or can be beautiful. We need to make it. There's still a lot of ugliness and brutality out there because there's still work to be done. But that's okay, because the more of us wake up, the more, and we are, the rate of people having spiritual experiences and waking up to themselves, into truth, is ever speeding up now, like an immune system response to the darkness that is trying to put people down with the tyranny and violence and authoritarianism that we see in the world. We are an immune response. So you doing the work is not just for you. You impact everybody around you. Even if you heal one fear, one wound, you will impact and serve everyone who's close to you.
Yeah. How does somebody, I mean, we're getting close on time here, but so maybe I'm opening the wrong door. Maybe this is like a sequel that will be as good as the first one. But how does somebody get started? So somebody's listening to this, they're vibing with this, they're like, I've got work to do. Dan, I need to get started. I need to heal. Like, how do they start doing the work? How does somebody get the ball rolling?
So there are various different ways, but I think just because of our conversation, what I would say is work on accepting and sitting with your emotions to listen to them. They'll give you direction. They'll tell you what to do, but you can't just listen to the surfacey stuff, right? The first reaction. Because if you're angry, the first reaction might be to punch someone. But if you listen to that anger might tell you, you deserve better treatment than this. Go find other friends. That this person is not hearing you. Try to communicate differently. You're not expressing yourself fully. Say that shit. It might say, like, hey, you are so much more worthy than you give yourself credit for, and that's why you're angry. Accept your worthiness. Your fear might tell you, hey, it's time to break out of that comfort zone. It's time to find your strength, but you're not going to get it just sitting here. You're going to have to go confront that. Your sadness might show you that you're disconnected from something that you truly love. But maybe that disconnection is good, or maybe the disconnection is illusory. So you'll feel in and you'll see, oh, you know what? I've given this person too much power over my life. And when they're not here, I'm sad. Your sadness might show you, you've given them way too much. You can love them without giving them your identity, so that they can go and you can have a happy time. And then when you come back, you have happiness to share with them instead of pity and sadness and anger. Listen to your emotions. Take time. And instead of brushing them away or coping or kind of mask them, sit with them, journal about them, journal through them, talk to them as if they were people, see them in front of you with your eyes closed, and ask them questions. What are you here to show me? What are you trying to teach me? What have I been ignoring that you're here to draw my attention to? You can ask these questions and many more and connect with yourself. and appreciate yourself and that side that is trying so hard to serve you and so hard to help you. And you're going to feel better, and you will learn, and you'll grow, and you will find that you are so much more complex and so much more powerful and so much more beautiful than you ever gave yourself credit for.
Man, I had some really good stuff to say, but I can't top what you just said. That was amazing. I wanted to comment on the idea of reframing feelings as teachers and guides instead of end products. I think I know I fall into the trap that the feelings are the end product of my experience. I did this, I felt that, that's the end, right? So this was a good or bad experience, but it's not that. What you're saying is you've had the experience. Now here comes the guide, here comes the teacher to teach you things about what you're really experiencing or what you should have experienced, but you didn't because you got into your defense mechanisms, right? And so it's like, oh, nope, turn your head over here, take a look at this difficult thing, And as soon as you do, the anger leaves, and now sadness or shame is there to teach you that, hey, this is why you're feeling this way. I love that, Dan. I mean, I'm going to start integrating that into practice really quickly, because I think a lot of people who are lost in their feelings and lost in those cycles and lost in those messages and that indoctrination and that training that we talked about early in the conversation, I don't think they ever think about feelings as teachers. They think about feelings as outcomes.
Right.
And to change that relationship with that, I think could be very helpful to a lot of people. So thank you for sharing that. That's amazing.
I'm glad you dig it. And you did bring up a really good point, by the way, because you might listen to one emotion and it might teach you something and leave, and another emotion can come up. Just keep going. Be patient. Give yourself time. You might have to do this for a long time. And that's okay, because that's what you're here for. And once you learn it and you end the cycle, you don't have to feel that again. So it's worth it. It's worth the time. Learn the lessons, and they will upgrade your experience of life. You deserve that.
Even if it takes multiple lifetimes to learn it.
However long it takes. And that's also why I think that as soon as you can, get a guide. Get a guide. I'm not saying hire me. I'm saying hire someone.
How do people find you? We're wrapping up here, Dan. How do we find you?
Easiest way. Go on Instagram at Dan Mendilow, MEND as in Daniel, ILOW. You can also go to danmendilow.com. I've got tons of good stuff, videos, and that's also where you can apply for a consultation to work with me if you're curious. And reach out. Like, I really am. I'm an open book, and I'm not here. Like, fortunately, life keeps on sending me clients. I do not need to do the salesy nonsense. If you want to talk, I'm here to talk. If you want, if you're trying to get some free advice or whatever, then I will point you to the fact that I do this for a living. But I do love conversation, and I do love assisting people or sharing resources. Or if you hate something that I said and you really want to get at me, come at me. Bring it. But not as a fight and not as a debate, as a discussion between two people who really want to learn from each other and grow. Because how do you think I learned this stuff? It's by talking with a lot of people. And I didn't agree with them at first. And then we both walked away a little wiser with a beautiful connection. So, don't be shy.
And if all that fails, they can go to Mexico and hang out, and eventually Dan will appear, because it seems like.
And eventually I'll be back, because I got a gangster shaman down there, and I can't stay away from her. So,
no, that's amazing, Dan. I'm honored. I appreciate the time so much. We'll cut this here, but we've got to stay in contact, and we've got to do this again. I think that there's some things there that. If we had talked about it at 10 minutes into the conversation, we could have gone down some different roads, right? Like, you can never step in the same river twice. You can never have the same conversation twice. And when you're ready, I mean, listen, I'm out here on the East Coast. Salem is an hour down the road. You can come down and we can go take a trip and see how you feel about some of that stuff. Because I know you're working that process, and you know that you got unreasonably angry in the past. Hey man, let's go to the coast and see what happens. And if you get out of control, Ian's got those big arms. He can drag you away, and we can make sure that you're safe. No,
That
but
sounds like a lot of fun.
Seriously, man, open invitation. We'd love to share some time and some space with you. And I'm just forever grateful for the time we've already shared. So thank you so much for today.
Oh, thank you, brother. It was really an honor. Such a wonderful conversation. And if you ever make it to the left coast, hit me up.
I'll be there. We'll be there soon. So, and for everybody at home, man, watching this, appreciate your time too. Everybody says it, and it's trite. Time is your most valuable resource. I mean, the fact that you've just spent an hour and 14 minutes of your time, hopefully with Dan and I think is such a blessing. And, you know, if you've taken one thing from this, we're really appreciative. We always have to shout out the sponsors. And so if some of this has sparked a desire in you for change, or has sparked a desire in you to begin your search, certainly reach out to Dan and all the resources he's provided. We'll provide those in the notes below. But if you need a more traditional approach, Anew behavioral health, especially in Ohio and New Hampshire, listen, psychiatric services, nursing services, therapy, case management, substance abuse services, mental health. The most beautiful thing about Anew is that it's a menu, right? There's no set program that you have to do. This is not a one size fits all life. This is not a one size fits all experience. So if you need a little bit of this and you need a little bit of that, and that's all you need, then Anew's got you. They built a program built specifically, tailored individually to your needs. So if this has brought up anything and you're thinking that it may be time to start asking those questions or start your search, please reach out to them, anewbh.com. You can always email them at helpnow@anewbh.com. So with that, we'll wrap. Dan, one final thank you so much, man. I appreciate your time. Thank you for being here. Ian and the production team, appreciate you guys so much. Ian and Leo, people have to meet Leo. We have a team now. It takes a lot of people to handle me and keep me on task. So we've added people to do that. So had a lot of fun. Looking forward to doing this again really soon. Thank you to everybody. In between now and next time, take care of yourself. Take care of each other. Thanks so much. Hey guys, although Through Help and Back is an excellent podcast with a lot of great ideas, I do want to let you know that in no way is Through Help and Back expected to be perceived as or relied upon in any way as specific medical advice or mental health advice for you personally. The information provided through Help and Back on our website or our podcast is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment that can be provided by your own providers. Do not use our content in lieu of professional advice given by qualified medical professionals, and do not disregard professional medical advice or delay seeking professional advice because of the information you have read on our website, heard on our podcast, or otherwise received from us. Although we love discussing issues related to healthcare, mental health, and addiction, we are not providing direct healthcare, mental health care, medical, or nutrition therapy services. We're not attempting to diagnose, treat, prevent, or cure in any manner whatsoever any physical or psychological ailment, any mental or emotional issue, disease, or condition. We are not giving you specific medical, psychological, or religious advice whatsoever. Please take care of yourself and take care of others as you always seek the advice of your own medical providers and your own mental health providers regarding any questions or concerns you have about your specific health, or before implementing any recommendations or suggestions from us. These are ideas that have worked for other people. We think it's important to share them. We do not guarantee that they will work for you specifically. Do not stop taking any medications without speaking to your physician, nurse practitioner, physician assistant, mental health provider, or any other healthcare or medical professional. And if you have or suspect that you have a medical or mental health issue, contact your own healthcare provider promptly. Also, one last thing, if you know or suspect that you are currently experiencing a crisis, it is absolutely imperative that you seek the advice of your doctor or other emergency healthcare services prior to ever thinking about using our content. We love the conversations. We're glad you're stopping by. We hope you take a lot from the content. But again, for your specific individual medical situation, please always seek quality personal care from your own providers. Do not let this information or this advice stand on its own. Thanks so much for listening.